Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on the second season of Breaking Bad. Now, as you know, the second season of Breaking Bad aired 13 episodes instead of 7. That ran from March the 8th to May the 31st, 2009. And keep in mind that season 2 is meant to start directly after season 1. We kind of see how Walter and even Jesse now fear for their lives from Tuco, who now kind of becomes a bit more deranged and even wants to sort of keep the product still going. And you can kind of tell Walter and even Jesse fear for their lives. And after being kidnapped by Tuco, and after Hank takes him down in a gun-off, we see how Walter and Jesse pick up Tuco's work and even try to re-establish their drug empire. And of course, we kind of see how Walter wants to put his life back on track, and we kind of see how Jesse sort of moves into a new sort of house after losing his big fancy one after his parents learn about his sort of meth lab. And of course, we kind of see how Jesse's friends and family all turn on him. And this is also where we see how Jesse ends up meeting Jane, who is meant to be this talented artist, and at the same time gets roped into Jesse's world and slowly gets back on the drugs. And of course, I would say Jane's character is meant to sort of see Jesse's potential, but of course does come with dangerous repercussions. And of course, we kind of see how Walter has to kind of rebuild his money again and kind of have to sort of pick up the slack. Of course, we are also introduced to Saul Goodman, who is meant to be this criminal lawyer who is an expert in dealing with kind of criminal means to help people. And what's actually interesting, there was a spin-off called Better Call Saul that acts more like a prequel. And of course, with Breaking Bad, we do kind of see how Hank has to deal with PSTD after some events, and I kind of feel Hank's PSTD doesn't really fit his character. I feel like the writers kind of threw it in and kind of needed to give him a motivation. And of course, when we see how Hank gets promoted to a different job, it's kind of clear his newer co-workers dislike him and don't really respect him as much to Hank's frustration. And of course, we also see how in Breaking Bad, how Walter does want to put things back to normal, but of course, we kind of see how slowly his cancer goes into remission, and it seems like this is a perfectly happy, good ending, but of course, there are going to come repercussions. And we also see how Skyler is a bit more cautious of what Walter and starts to suspect something's up from the second phones, his weird behavior, and even when she's pregnant, you can kind of tell she goes back to smoking to sort of cope with everything going on. And of course, we are also introduced to Gus, who is meant to be this guy who runs a restaurant, and Saul kind of giving Walter and even Jesse ideas to help fund their business with Gus's help. And I would also say as well with season 2, what it also gets right is how it kind of gives you an introduction to what's going to happen, because we see Jesse's car rocking back and forth in one of the episodes to give you a hint something's going on. And we kind of see how there's a pink bear in a swimming pool that leads up to something that's going to happen in the future final episode. And also as well, what I think they get right at in episode 7, they actually have a Mexican band performing their song to sort of give you this introduction. And at the same time, I would say with Breaking Bad, what it also gets right, we kind of see how Walter and Jesse take over Tuco's territory and slowly rebuild their drug empire. And of course, much like season 1, it starts off bad, but gets better, but then relapses again. And I think it works because we do kind of see repercussions from it. We see how Walter wants to kind of put his life back together, but is still going to be narcissistic, arrogant, and nasty. Like, after the events in episode 1, we see how he tries to force himself upon his wife to feel powerful again. But when he tries to be nice, he does try to sort of fix up the house and everything else. And we do kind of see repercussions from season 1, like how Skylar calls out her sister for stealing the tiara, and you can kind of tell Hank has to kind of keep things together and keep the peace between family. But I just think the PSTD thing doesn't really fit Hank's character. It feels a little unnecessary, and I think the writers threw it in to kind of give Hank a sort of clutch to use. But I think for the rest of season 2 isn't great, but it's definitely a good payoff. It's starting to slowly build Walter White's empire, and we slowly see characters like Saul, Gus, and so many others coming into the world of Breaking Bad. And I would say this season definitely deserves a thumbs up. Still good, and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.